Welcome to the Magalia Rose Studio. My name is Kathy, and I am a professional artist and have taught watercolor to beginning through intermediate and advanced students for over 10 years. This is part one of a two-part instructional video series that will show you the supplies needed to create a custom stencil and a demonstration of a simple stencil to get you started. Part two will demonstrate several examples of mediums that can be used with the stencil. Remember, this is just a starting point for you to create your own stencils and ideas and how to use them. Stencils can add lots of fun to various art mediums, including watercolor, watercolor crystals, and even alcohol inks, to name a few. And also the surfaces can vary, from traditional watercolor papers to mineral paper to Yupo, anything else that you can think of to try. Commercial stencils often don't give the creative flexibility you may be looking for, but making your own stencils can offer unlimited creative freedom. Remember, this is just a starting point for you to create your own stencils and ideas on how to use them. Creating your own stencils is going to involve a little bit of an investiture and some supplies. The most important thing, of course, is the stencil burner, which is very similar to a wood burner or a soldering iron. This particular one I got on Amazon. It is from Walnut Hollow, and it is called a Versa-Tool. The cost was around $25, and there are less and more expensive models available from a variety of vendors. This one I enjoy because it has an adjustable temperature, because some materials require a little more or less heat, and it also has a variety of tips that are interchangeable on the front here, and that also comes in very handy. The actual stencil material itself, I use either acetate or Dura-lar clear. These are 11 by 14 sheets, which is my favorite and again most versatile size. You will also need a piece of glass. You can use glass from an old picture frame. You can see I have taped all the edges for safety. Do not use acrylic. Acrylic will melt with the heat of the tip of the stencil iron. And lastly, I use 11 by 14 sketch paper to draw the image of the stencil I'm going to be cutting. When you're doing your drawing, be sure that it's not a very complicated drawing. The simpler the better, especially in the beginning, until you understand the process a little better. So now I'll demonstrate the basic process of creating a custom stencil. Here I have drawn a simple evergreen tree. The foliage is in blocks. It'll be large enough to easily trace with the burning tool and to pop out once the template is done and transferred to the Dura-lar or the acetate. I have plugged in the burning tool and heated it to a medium-high temperature. My tool has colors to indicate the heat. Yours may have temperature, and that'll simply be a matter of experimentation. I'm going to put the sketch under the glass. And then I can lay a sheet of Dura-lar or acetate over the glass. And if you want to test that your tool is hot enough, you can just use a small corner of your material there. And if it smoothly cuts through, I sometimes will make just a simple circle. And I will pop that out. And that basically tells me that my circle is complete. Okay, now let's go ahead and put the acetate or the Dura-lar over, and imagine a sandwich. The bottom is your sketch, the next layer is the glass, and the final layer over the glass is your Dura-lar or your acetate. I sometimes will put a little bit of tape to hold it in place so it doesn't slip. And I'm about ready to begin making the stencil. I use a fine tip on this, and I'm simply going to go and follow that pattern of my drawing and just trace over it with the tool. If you find that it is dragging, it probably isn't hot enough, so give it a few moments to heat up and try it again. This is about the pace. It may seem slow at first, but that is about how it goes. Let's try this one here. That is about the speed you'll be going. Relax and enjoy the tracing process. It's kind of fun. If you see anything that needs correcting, you can just do it right now. And that is the basic first part of tracing. If you'd like to see what happens, I'm going to remove one of the pieces of tape. Lift the Dura-lar material, and as you can see, it has formed a stencil. I'm going to replace the tape, and now I'm going to go ahead and complete this whole process, but I'm going to speed that up, and when I come back we can see the stencil completed. Welcome back. I've traced all the areas with my little hot gun, my little stencil burner, and now I've let it cool for just a minute or two, and I'm going to now remove my stencil from the glass. My advice here is go very slowly and gently. Some of the areas will stick to the glass, and you don't want to tear the stencil. So I'm going to just gently kind of come up. And there, it is released. Now, some of the pieces will remain on the glass, and you can just remove those. I'm going to set this aside with my sketch. And then the stencil has areas where you can simply pop out the parts that have stuck in there, and you're just going to pop them out. Some will be easier than others. And you're going to end up with a pile that are the areas that we're going to discard. And here is the completed stencil. I hope you can somewhat see how it looks. Now, one thing I have done with this, just to give you an idea before we start part 2, which will give you some ideas with Yupo, Brusho, Watercolor, maybe even some liquid acrylics, is a little tree that I have made and used Brusho with that stencil. As you can see, it just went over. And I can use it as is. I could actually come in and put additional trees in there. It's pretty unlimited. I can reverse it to get a little different look. So that is some of the fun that you can have with a stencil. So let's get yourself busy making the stencil, and in part 2, let's put it to use and see what creative ideas we can come up with.